Hey everyone, welcome to PLMin10, everything you wanted to know about product lifecycle management 10 minutes at a time. This is Matt Duca from Linx-AS, and today we're talking about workflow. In part 1 of this series, we'll look at workflow design and how to achieve the perfect balance of functionality to drive product development. Part 2 will look at the power of analytics when a best practice system is in place and driving business processes. So what do we mean by perfect balance? Well, workflow can be a powerful tool, but I think we've all been in a situation where workflow was well-intentioned, but over-engineered to a point where it hindered or frustrated users more than it streamlined business. On the other end of that spectrum is workflow so thin it allows for tasks and responsibilities to fall through the cracks. So somewhere in between is what we're calling the perfect balance. But PLM can make that difficult. It's data intensive and it cuts across R&D, quality, regulatory, procurement, and so on. And when you roll that out to multiple sites globally, you can see the design complexity grows exponentially. The good news is that SAP workflow is robust and is adept at handling complex PLM requirements. And with some innovation, it can be optimized to provide the perfect balance of automation and role-based action to power product development. So now let's take a look into the system, and we'll pick out a specific example of a raw material or ingredient approval as it works its way from initiation to release. But keep in mind, any PLM object can be used, documents, recipes, formulas, and so on. For this example, we're using an ingredient specification. So here we are in S/4HANA, 1709 to be specific, but this functionality is also available in ECC. We're working with an ingredient specification type. As I said before, it's in process status, and we're using the engineering record or ER to get the approval done. So let's initiate the workflow. And you see the system has automatically determined the correct ER type, ZRAW, based on the spec type we're working with. The ER type is specifically configured to manage raw material approval workflow, so you can see the flexibility to configure different workflows based on spec type. The new record number is created, and the associated specification is included within the workflow. The system also loads the detailed process route template based on the system configuration. Templates can be global or plant or location specific. The system can also be configured to apply certain checks. So let's try to start a workflow here. You see we get a flag to select a plant. This just shows how you can build in required fields to ensure proper routing. Again, this is all configurable based on your design needs. For example, if I choose plant LX03, then we go back and take a look at the process route. You notice now that all the steps not related to plant LX03 are filtered out. Only the steps and roles for completing a raw material approval at LX03 are active. If we go back and change the selection, you now see the steps related to plant 01 are active. Again, just flexibility in design if you're rolling out a solution to multiple locations. Now, with the plant assigned, we can trigger the workflow approval, and the first task is assigned. The status of the engineering record is also automatically changed from 10 initial to 20 in process. If we go to team definition, we can see the specific user assigned to each step or task. In this example, user Pranav Patel has received the first task. You can see that steps can be in sequence or in parallel. Now I'm logging in as an approver from my Fiori Launchpad and accessing the engineering inbox where all my workflow-related engineering records are located. Here I have the first workflow task as a regulatory approver. From here, you can see the ER status, instructions on what I'm supposed to do to complete this task, and the attached specification. From here, I could view the specification in the system or save time and open up the dynamically generated WWI report to review the specification details. These reports can also be PDFs if desired. Once the review is complete, the user can go back into the engineering record, click Edit, and make a decision on the specification. Once approved, the task is removed from the inbox and the next task is fired off. I'm set up for all roles here, so you now see we went from regulatory approval to R&D approval. And when you open the new task as the next approver, you can see the ER status is now 30 in process. And you can see the history of workflow, including the previous reviewers and their decisions. So again, we're now in R&D approval step as an R&D manager. The ER status is 30. Just as an aside here on the status and automatic changes, we can see in the header status log that the ER was changed from 10 to 20 when the workflow was triggered, so that was a manual event. Then upon approval, the system in the background automatically changed the status to 30. Similarly, workflow also manages the status of the specification object itself in the background. If we go into the specification and look at the header status, you now see my specification is sitting in status for release. So it was changed by the workflow user from in process to for release based on the step that is configured in workflow. So I'll navigate back to the ER record and show you where that step is in the process route. So basically this step here, change ER and object status, is the step that changed the ER to 30 and specification to for release. Now I'll go ahead and approve as the R&D user. Now back to the inbox, you see we moved on to quality and purchasing tasks for plant LX01, which have been triggered in parallel as tasks. So you get the idea here. I'm jumping ahead now to full approval. Once all the reviews are completed and the decisions are captured in the system, you can see the status of the ER engineering record is automatically changed to completed. As you can see in the header status log, the status is changed by the workflow system. And if you go into the specification again, you see the system has changed the status of the specification object from for release to released. Okay, that's a quick and simple demo, but I think you can see the underlying versatility and power in this design if you consider the sheer number of tasks across plants that are occurring. Location and spec type based templates provide great flexibility in rollout. Background operations are simplifying the process, and access to the PLM objects are right at the inbox, not sending you off on a hunt. In the end, PLM workflow is not only streamlining product development processes, but it's creating a lot of data on workflow activity and efficiency. Tasks completed, tasks missed, delays, and more, which leads us into part 2, where we'll look at the power of workflow analytics and how to use workflow dashboards to monitor and optimize your product development. Until then, thanks for watching PLMin10.